Since in 2017, this book has been decoded 3 separate times. Each time, it made international headlines: a Latin health manual, a Hebrew code, a lost European language older than any text that should still exist. Each time, within weeks, other experts took the claim apart. Nobody has ever produced a verified translation of a single sentence. The book is real. The parchment is real. Radiocarbon dating proves it. What nobody can prove, after more than 100 years of professional codebreakers, linguists, and now artificial intelligence trying, is what any of it actually says. It's called the Voynich Manuscript, named for the rare book dealer who bought it in 1912. 200 and some pages of vellum, covered in flowing, confident handwriting in an alphabet that matches no known language on Earth. Historians call the script Voynichese, because there's nothing else to call it. So what language is this, really? 4 samples of the parchment were radiocarbon dated at the University of Arizona. The result? The calf skin was made sometime between 1404 and 1438. Every tested page comes from the same narrow window. This isn't a Victorian forgery on old paper. The book itself is genuinely medieval. But here's the detail worth sitting with. Radiocarbon dating tells you when the parchment was made. It doesn't tell you when the writing was added. It was common, historically, for blank vellum to sit unused for decades before anyone wrote on it. So the ink could, in theory, be centuries younger than the page it's written on. Except there's no physical evidence of that. No erased earlier text underneath. No scraping marks. No modern pigments that would give away a later forgery. Whoever wrote this book wrote it on fresh parchment, close to the time. The manuscript isn't just text. It's illustrated extensively, and the illustrations are almost as strange as the writing. There's a botanical section. Over 100 detailed drawings of plants, roots, leaves, and flowers. Specialists have tried, for decades, to match them to real species. Almost none of them match anything that grows on Earth. There's an astronomical section, full of zodiac symbols and star chart. A section historians call biological, showing small nude female figures standing in pools of green liquid, connected by a strange network of tubes. 9 enormous fold-out pages covered in circular diagrams nobody has explained. A pharmaceutical section pairing labeled jars with plant parts, like a medieval apothecary's reference guide. And finally, pages of dense, continuous text, broken up by small star-shaped marks that look, for all the world, like a list of recipes. If this were a hoax, it's an extraordinarily elaborate one, built with real medieval materials, illustrated with real medieval artistic technique, and organized like a real reference book. If it's real, it's a complete, functioning body of knowledge that nobody alive can read. The earliest confirmed owner was a Prague alchemist named George Beresh sometime in the 1600s. But there's an older story attached to it, second-hand, but persistent. A letter written in 1665 claims the manuscript was once bought by Rudolph II, the Holy Roman Emperor, for the equivalent of a small fortune. The evidence isn't a receipt. It's a faint signature on the first page, belonging to the head of Rudolph's own botanical gardens. If true, it means an emperor spent a fortune on a book that even the scholars in his own court couldn't read. From there, the manuscript passed through Jesuit hands in Rome for over 2 centuries, until a rare book dealer named Wilfrid Voynich bought it from a college near Rome in 1912. It stayed in his family, then changed hands twice more, until a book dealer who couldn't find a buyer for it finally donated it to Yale University in 1969. It's been there ever since, cataloged, photographed, and, as far as anyone can prove, still completely unread. In 2017, a screenwriter named Nicholas Gibbs announced he'd cracked it. His claim, the text was abbreviated medieval Latin, and the book itself was a women's health manual. It made headlines everywhere. Then medievalists actually checked his method against the text. It couldn't reproduce a single verifiable passage. The claim quietly died. That same year, 2 computational linguists ran the manuscript through statistical analysis and proposed the underlying language was Hebrew, encoded using alphabetically reordered anagram. It was a legitimate academic study, but other specialists who reviewed the method weren't convinced it actually worked. Then, in 2019, came the biggest claim yet. A University of Bristol academic named Gerard Cheshire published a peer-reviewed paper announcing he'd identified the language, Proto-Romance, an ancestor to Spanish, French, Italian, and Portuguese. International news outlets ran with Voynich Manuscript finally solved. It lasted about 2 weeks. Linguists tore it apart. The language Cheshire described, they said, couldn't have existed as a written text by the 1400s. One specialist compared the claim to saying dinosaurs might still be alive somewhere. No scholar who actually works with the manuscript found any corroboration for it. 3 headlines. 3 collapses. Nobody has landed a 4th attempt yet, but nobody has stopped trying either. There's a theory that would explain all of this cleanly. It's not a real language at all, just a very convincing hoax. Meaningless text, generated by a scribe following a simple mechanical pattern, sold to a gullible or desperate buyer for a fortune. Statistical modeling has shown that a basic random generation process could, in theory, produce text with some of the same surface patterns. But there's a problem with that theory too. The statistical structure researchers have found in the text, the way certain word shapes cluster in certain positions, the way vocabulary behaves across different sections, is layered and consistent in ways nobody has been able to show a simple medieval hoax method could produce. Producing gibberish that looks random is easy. Producing gibberish with this much internal structure, using tools available in the 1400s, is something no one has actually demonstrated is possible. Which leaves 2 real possibilities, and historians are still split. Either this is a real language, written in a real, invented, or heavily disguised alphabet, still waiting for the one insight that finally unlocks it. Or it's the most sophisticated act of confident nonsense ever produced by hand, 500 years before anyone had the tools to prove it. What we can say for certain is small and almost unsettling in how little it resolves. The parchment is 600 years old. The ink shows no sign of tampering. The illustrations depict a working system of botany, astronomy, and medicine that doesn't quite match anything real. And in over a century of trying, cryptanalysts, linguists, and now machine learning systems included, nobody has produced a translation that survives contact with an expert. 3 times, someone has stood up and said the mystery is over. 3 times, they were wrong. If you were the one holding this book, knowing everything we just told you, would you believe it says something? Or would you believe, after 600 years, that it was never meant to be read at all? Drop your theory in the comments. And if forgotten history and unsolved mysteries are your thing, subscribe to The Vanished Vault. We're not done digging.